Puerto Rico's tension has escalated, and this time it's not just about trivial disputes or jealous looks. Rather, it's about loyalty, treachery, and a revelation that has left everyone stunned. Following a startling chat that totally turned the trip's tone, rumors are spreading more quickly than ever before, and all eyes are on Mendeecees and Zane. What should have been a peaceful morning descended into mayhem when Zane made a shocking comment that had everyone wondering what was actually happening between Mendeecees and Yandy. According to people close to the group, Zane alluded to having knowledge that might alter the way people view Mendeecees forever. When he said it, everyone in the villa fell silent, glasses clinked, and jaws dropped. In an attempt to determine whether he was being serious or only creating a scene for the cameras, individuals began exchanging glances. However, the tone of Zane's voice made it clear that this was more than simply a piece of gossip. It was a secret that had the power to destroy relationships. The notion lingered as Mendeecees sat there looking tense. Is there something he's been keeping from Yandy all along? By the time the sun rose over Puerto Rico the following morning, the mood among the cast was uneasy. The dinner confrontation had changed everything, and even the ocean breeze couldn't wash away the tension sitting by the pool. With his coffee, Scrappy muttered to himself that things were about to get worse, and he was right. Because that morning, Zane decided he'd had enough of watching everyone dance around the truth in his mind, if nobody was going to say it. Then he would, and that decision would end up shaking the entire villa to its core. Insiders say cameras were rolling when Zane walked up to a group that included Spice, Carly Red, and Bambi, who were all quietly discussing what had happened the night before. Zane looked serious. No jokes, no smiles, just straight energy. He said he didn't like how everyone was whispering behind each other's backs, and that if people really wanted to talk about loyalty and relationships, then they needed to be real about it. Spice looked up from her drink and said calmly, "So be real then?" That was all the permission Zane needed. He said he had seen something, with his own eyes, and that it involved someone who had been acting like the perfect partner for the cameras, but doing something else off them. The moment those words left his mouth, the vibe changed completely. Carly leaned in, asking who he was talking about. And Zane said softly, "Let's just say I ain't surprised Yandy ain't here right now." The silence was loud, and the reactions were priceless. Spice's mouth dropped open. Bambi glanced around trying to read the room while Carly instantly started recording confessionals in her head. She knew this was reality. TV Gold Zane continued explaining that he had been told by someone close to Mendeecees that there was a woman he had been meeting up with in New York while Yandy was traveling for work. He didn't say names, but he said enough that everyone knew who he meant. Spice immediately said, "Don't play like that, Zane. This ain't no small talk, you accusing a married man on camera." But Zane didn't back down. He told them he didn't come to start drama, but to speak truth before lies spread further, according to those nearby. His tone was calm, but his words cut deep. He claimed he had seen messages exchanged, and that if anyone wanted proof, they could ask Mendeecees themselves by midday. Everyone knew what Zane had said, and the energy on set turned explosive. Mendeecees arrived later for a scheduled group activity, only to find people whispering the moment he walked in. He could feel eyes burning, holes in his back when he asked what was going on. Scrappy didn't sugarcoat it. He said, "Bro, Zane just said you've been creeping while Yandy's out here building her empire." The look on Mendeecees' face was a mix of disbelief and anger. Looked straight at Zane and asked if he really said that. Zane didn't blink. He nodded, saying, "I said what I said." That was enough to send everyone running for cover. Producers rushed in, cameras spun around, and within seconds, the calm morning had turned into chaos. Yandy wasn't even on set yet, but her name was already trending again, this time for all the wrong reasons. Mendeecees took a deep breath and told Zane to step outside so they could talk off camera. But producers insisted they stay where the audience could see everything. Mendeecees said, "You got no right talking about my family, bro. You don't know what we've been through." Zane replied, "Then clear it up, cause what I seen don't look like no family business. It looked like you moving different." Spice jumped in trying to mediate, but her presence only made things worse. She said, "Men always get caught slipping because they think nobody watching." Mendeecees turned to her with a glare, saying, "Spice, stay out my marriage, you always talking loud about something that ain't your business." Bambi then whispered to Carly that she couldn't believe how serious it had gotten. Carly just smirked and said, "This right here gonna break the internet." As things escalated, producers called for a brief break, but Mendeecees refused to leave. He pointed at Zane and said, "You better be ready to back that up, because I'm not letting you play with my name like that." Zane said he wasn't backing anything up. He was just repeating what he saw. Mendeecees asked, "So what you see?" Zane paused, looked around and said, "I saw you getting too comfortable with somebody that ain't your wife, and I'm not the only one who noticed." Spice let out a dramatic gasp, and Scrappy tried not to laugh, but the tension was too real. Mendeecees' jaw clenched, and for a brief moment, it looked like he might swing, but instead he walked off, leaving everyone stunned. The cameras followed him as he paced outside, calling someone on his phone. Many people think it was Yandy, but no one knows what was said during that call, and his expression changed as he hung up. He returned inside, calmer but colder, and told everyone, "Y'all want a show, fine, but when the truth come out, don't say I didn't warn you." Spice looked at him and asked, "So is it true or not?" He didn't respond. Instead, he simply stared for a few seconds before leaving once more. By the evening, everyone had taken sides. Some thought Zane was merely trying to boost ratings, while others thought he had finally revealed something genuine. The tension even reached fans online, who began sharing clips with captions like "Zane just ended Mendeecees" and "Yandy better log off the internet tonight." Behind the scenes, it seemed that Zane had already heard what had happened. She was filming a separate confessional when a producer whispered something to her. She froze in mid-sentence, took a deep breath and said, "Oh, we doing that now?" She excused herself from the shoot, and later that evening arrived back at the villa unannounced, according to multiple witnesses. The moment she walked in, the energy shifted again. The cast members who were gossiping went quiet. She went straight to Zane, who looked both nervous and ready. She said, "I heard you talking about my marriage. You better hope you not spreading lies for clout." Zane replied, "I ain't lying. I saw what I saw." And Yandy looked at him dead in the eye before saying, "Then maybe you should open them better next time, 'cause you clearly don't see straight." Spice tried to calm her, but Yandy wasn't done. She turned to the cameras and said, "This is what happens when bored men get airtime." But the real shock came when Mendeecees reappeared. Moments later, his tone wasn't defensive anymore. It was controlled. He said, "Look, everybody think they know, but none of y'all been in my shoes. Yandy know what's up. I ain't gotta explain myself to no one." Yandy folded her arms and said quietly, "Then explain it to me, 'cause I'm still waiting." The room went silent again. This wasn't part of any script anymore. Even the crew looked stunned as Mendeecees rubbed his hands together and said, "Not here. Not like this." Yandy replied, "Nah, right here, right now, 'cause you let it get this far." The rawness of that moment was enough to send shivers through everyone watching. Nobody expected them to face off so directly in front of the cast and cameras. The tension stayed thick until producers finally called it a wrap. But everyone knew the night wasn't over. That confession Zane had dropped earlier had already taken a life of its own. The blogs were spinning stories, the hashtags were trending, and the cast was left wondering if they had just witnessed the beginning of the end for one of the show's most iconic couples when cameras started. Rolling again the next morning, the tension from the night before was still hanging heavy in the air. The once paradise-like Puerto Rico villa now felt like a pressure cooker on the verge of blowing up. In addition to being incensed at Zane's charge, Yandy was still upset about Mendeecees' handling of it. She thought he would stop the rumors right away, but instead, he left, leaving her to deal with the shame on her own. According to insiders, she paced the room and mentally reenacted the altercation while she hardly slept that night. By dawn, she had decided that she would demand answers herself if the Mendeecees failed to clarify the situation. About breakfast, Mendeecees was sitting by the pool with Scrappy and Kirk, attempting to act normal. He chuckled when Scrappy said something, but his gaze kept flitting to the villa in anticipation of Yandy's arrival. The whole atmosphere changed when she eventually did, sporting shades and a tight face. She didn't welcome anyone, didn't smile. She went straight up to him and whispered quietly, "We need to talk." Everyone froze. "Oh Lord, here we go again," Kirk mumbled to himself. The cameras trailed behind them as they moved to the side, out of earshot but still close to the others. With her arms crossed, Yandy gave him a direct look. "Will you explain to me why I had to hear from Zane that you were out in New York being friendly?" "I said," she said. Mendeecees shook his head and moaned. "It's not what he's making it seem, darling. For TV, he is twisting it." "Then explain it for real, because you didn't look too innocent last night," Yandy retorted. He scratched his temples, obviously annoyed. "I had a business meeting with someone. That's all. When individuals see something, they immediately take it." After giving him a long look, Yandy said quietly, "So why didn't you say that last night?" He didn't have an answer, and she learned all she needed to know from that stillness. Meanwhile, inside the villa, Spice and Bambi were gossiping about the confrontation. According to Spice, "You know what? I don't believe that Zane is lying. He looked too confident, like he's seen proof." "Yeah, but Yandy ain't no fool," Bambi said, nodding. "She'll find it if something is happening." Never one to pass on a dramatic moment, Carly joined in with her coffee, stating, "Believe me, producers are loving this. They are getting just what they desire." "Girl, this isn't a plot," Spice said, rolling her eyes. "This is someone's marriage." Back outside, the temperature was rising. As she replied, "You know I've stood by you through everything, right?" Yandy's voice briefly softened. "Through the falsehoods, the gossip, and the incarceration. Don't make me appear foolish once more." Mendeecees said, "I know and I appreciate that," as he glanced down. "However, you must quit taking anything others say at face value." "Then give me a reason not to," she answered. That statement really got to me. She was rendered speechless as he looked at her for a moment before turning to go. Zane was sitting at the bar, acting as like nothing was wrong, when he returned inside. Nevertheless, the tension between them was unmistakable. Mendeecees approached him carefully and whispered, "Last night, you had your little moment. I want to know exactly what you saw, man to man." "I saw what I saw and I ain't taking it back," replied Zane as he turned around coolly. "Her name is familiar to you." Mendeecees' mouth clenched. He remarked, "Bro, you have no idea what you're talking about." "I already know enough," Zane said. "I'm not alone either. It was that line that caused the room to erupt." Everybody froze. Spice set down her drink and Bambi muttered, "You mean you're not the only one?" "Ask Scrappy," Zane remarked with a little smirk. "He understands what I mean." Scrappy's hands went up instantly. "Don't include me in this mess, please. I'm not verifying anything." With his voice rising, Mendeecees turned to face Scrappy. "You too, my friend? Are you discussing my wife out here?" "No, man, but the streets talk," remarked Scrappy as he got to his feet. "I don't say anything that doesn't already exist." When she heard that, Yandy, who had just returned to the room, froze. "So, this is the kind of talk you guys are having behind my back?" "I said," she said. Spice attempted to speak, but Yandy had stopped paying attention. "You really got some nerve dragging my marriage into this just for a storyline," she added, pointing to Zane. "This ain't about a storyline," Zane said coolly. "It's about truth. You cannot continue to pretend as though everything is ideal when it isn't." The dispute swiftly got out of hand. Cameras captured every moment as voices overlapped, and Bambi shook her head. Spice tried to reassure everyone, and Carly whispered, "This is going to be the biggest episode yet." Mendeecees pushed his hand away when he attempted to move between Zane and Yandy. She snapped, "Don't touch me right now." That tiny move was incredibly telling. After seeing the uncut video, many called the scene heartbreaking. You can see the exact second Yandy's trust cracked. One fan even tweeted, Producers divided the ensemble into sections to allow them to chill down by the afternoon. Spice drew Zane aside and said bluntly, "Are you certain you're not making this up?" He looked her straight in the eye and said, "Spice, I wish I was. However, I did see them at a Brooklyn lounge. The meeting was not for business purposes. They were too close to do it." Spice groaned, understanding the implications for both Yandy and the show. "You realize once this airs, there's no going back," she said to him. "I already crossed that line," Zane said, nodding. Yandy was venting to Bambi back in her room, expressing her disbelief at the extent of the situation. She sobbed as she remarked, "It seems like no matter how much I do, people always want to see me break." "Girl, you're one of the strongest women here," Bambi reassured her, "but you can't ignore this. You have to correct the record." "Yeah, but I'm not going to scream and throw drinks like them," said Yandy, nodding slowly. "I'll take care of it my way." In an attempt to diffuse the tension on camera, producers brought everyone to the main terrace for a cast supper as the sun began to set. However, they were surprised to learn that the Mendeecees had chosen to change the course of events. Before anyone could finish their meal, he jumped up and said, "Let's settle this now since everyone has so much to say about me." Everyone froze with their spoons out. Spice whispered, "Oh, this is going to be good," as she leaned forward. "Everyone acting like they know my business, but ain't nobody asked me what's real," Mendeecees said, glancing around the table. "Yes, I have made mistakes in the past, but this one? You guys are reaching. So you're saying I'm lying?" Zane interrupted. Mendeecees gave him a fierce look and said, "I'm saying you're talking without facts. I also received receipts if we did that." That sentence caused the energy to shift once more. All of a sudden, the focus shifted from defense to proof. Spice said, "Oh, we're bringing receipts now?" After glancing between them, uncertain of what would happen next, Yandy covered her mouth with her palm in silence. As Mendeecees took his phone out of his pocket, the air became heavier. "Do you want to view the messages?" He answered, "I'll show you exactly who that woman is." However, he was stopped by Yandy before he could unlock his phone. "Don't," she muttered. "Don't act like this for them. This isn't for television." Everyone fell hushed when her voice cracked just enough. Not even Zane replied. "Are you happy now?" she asked, glancing at him. "Have you had your chance?" With a sudden sense of uncertainty, Zane looked down. Mendeecees returned to his seat, panting. "Oh, this episode just wrote itself," Spice muttered to Carly. However, the silence was short-lived. Producers requested a brief pause to readjust the lights, but Yandy remained motionless. "People love to see black love fall apart," she remarked softly, staring directly into the camera. Not this time, though. Her eyes remained steady, but her voice wavered. Mendeecees stared at her, not knowing if he should feel guilty or proud. One thing was certain, regardless of what had been said. The truth was out there, someplace, and everyone could sense it approaching. The following day started off with a spooky quiet throughout the villa, the kind of quiet that typically precedes a storm. Instead of eating breakfast, the majority of the cast stayed in their rooms and checked social media and browsed through their phones. The internet was in full meltdown mode after footage of the altercation emerged overnight. Every move, pause, and glance that Mendeecees and Yandy exchanged was being scrutinized by admirers. Trending hashtags included Mendeecees exposed and Yandy deserves better, and the news had even been taken up by celebrity gossip pages. Nobody was holding back, and everyone had an opinion. Spice was the first to go outdoors, sipping a mimosa and sporting huge shades as if nothing had happened. However, the expression on her face told her that this was just the beginning. Zane left shortly after, pacing by the pool while obviously thinking. He was contacted overnight by bloggers offering him money for an exclusive comment, according to those close to the production. Zane, however, had declined, claiming he wasn't doing this for attention. However, it was already difficult to distinguish between publicity and honesty. Since the supper, Mendeecees and Yandy had not spoken. She had shut herself in her room, and he spent much of the night sitting outdoors by the shore, watching at the waves. He appeared defeated according to others who saw him, as if he had realized he might have lost. "So why didn't you shut it down sooner?" she asked, folding her hands in her lap. "Because no matter what I say, people are going to believe what they want to believe," he said after giving her a brief glance. "Then make me believe you," said Yandy. That sentence hung like smoke in the atmosphere. Mendeecees took a deep breath. "It's true that Zane saw me with someone," he said. However, it wasn't what he had assumed. "I had a meeting with a promoter regarding a charitable event. She gave me a hug, photos were taken, and then there was a scandal." Yandy's eyes squinted. "So, while I'm at home protecting your name, you're out here hugging strangers?" Her voice cracked slightly as she said, "It wasn't like that, babe." He attempted to clarify. "It was merely business. It didn't look horrible, in my opinion." She gave a headshake. "You never do. That's the issue every time." The rest of the group could sense the weight of the atmosphere outdoors. "You think they'll make it?" Spice whispered to Bambi. "I don't know. But whatever happens today, it's going to be real," replied Bambi. "They better fix it before this turns into another Safari and Erica situation," said Scrappy, who was seated close by. They all gave a tiny laugh, but it was short-lived. Love on this program never remained simple for very long, as everyone knew. The discussion was deepening back inside. Leaning forward, Mendeecees whispered, "You know I love you, right? I wouldn't jeopardize what we've created." Yandy averted his gaze and wiped away a tear before it dropped. She remarked, "You say that, but your actions no longer match your words. You're the one who provided them with the ammunition, and there are people out there talking about me, dragging me, and making me look foolish." "I didn't give nobody nothing," he said in an attempt to defend himself. "They're just making things up. Zane didn't twist nothing. He saw something that looked wrong, and now I have to deal with it," Yandy shot back harshly. When producers asked them if they wanted to take a break, the situation became more serious, but Yandy refused. "No," she replied. "Let's get this done." She turned back to Mendeecees and said, "Do you recall when we first appeared on this show? I'm sick of people telling my story for me. I warned you that fame would put us to the test. Well, it's currently putting us to the test, and we can't let it win," he said, nodding slowly. It appeared as though they might be able to agree for a moment until the door abruptly opened. Uninvited but unrepentant, Spice entered. She apologized, but she was unable to continue watching this. "People need to understand how this began, even if I know you're trying to repair it." Mendeecees scowled and said, "This is none of your business." Spice. "Maybe not," she said. "But the moment the cameras captured that mess, you guys made it everyone's business. Let's discuss the facts. Zane wasn't lying," she added, turning to face Yandy. He claimed to have seen messages in addition to an embrace. Wendy froze, her heart lowering. "What messages?" she muttered. Spice paused, thinking she might have overreached herself. However, Mendeecees' visage had already altered, thus it was too late. He glared at Spice as he got to his feet. "You're lying again?" He uttered those words. Defensively, she held up her hands. "I'm not promoting any misinformation." He stepped up and spoke firmly. "I'm telling you what Zane told me. In order to prevent Zane from saying something he can't take back, you might need to tell him to stop talking so much. Or perhaps you should quit giving folks incentive to talk," Spice retorted. The dispute flared up again like gasoline. In an attempt to quiet everyone, the producers hurried back into the room, but the yelling persisted. The remainder of the cast gathered outside, listening through the open windows, close to the patio. "This is going to be the highest-rated episode ever," Carly muttered. "Girl, you're messy," Bambi murmured, but she couldn't help but smile. In the meantime, Zane silently observed from the patio's edge. He appeared conflicted, almost remorseful. Producers drew him inside when they saw him in the hopes of recording a confession. "You actually saw messages?" One person off-screen inquired. Zane gave a slow nod. "Yeah," he muttered. "However, I didn't intend for it to go astray." When Yandy abruptly stood up, her voice wavering but forceful, the pandemonium inside reached a breaking point. "Enough," she declared. "I don't give a damn who witnessed what. I'm aware of what I have created and what I stand for. I refuse to let gossip undo all of my hard work." She gave Mendeecees one final glance before asking, "Want to prove yourself?" "Act as though you are." She then left, leaving everyone in disbelief. This time, Mendeecees chose not to pursue her. Instead, he simply sat down and gazed into space, understanding that his silence had caused more harm than any gossip could. After that, the villa felt empty. Several actors attempted to soften the tone, but to no avail. For once, Spice sat quietly as she browsed through her phone, and Zane vanished from view. Word got out that Yandy had asked to shoot her upcoming sequences in a different location, away from everyone else. Sensing that they needed to give her space, producers agreed. Meanwhile, online public discourse had changed from one of curiosity to one of pity. By referring to Yandy as the Queen of Grace and criticizing Zane for doing too much for clout, supporters started to defend her. Mendeecees was once more spotted by the shore by himself as night fell, speaking quietly to himself. He appeared to be practicing something, possibly an apology, according to one crew member. However, he merely responded, "Some things you can't fix with words," when questioned about it later. For the first time, the once unshakable man appeared totally lost as the waves slammed on the coast. Nobody yet realized that another twist, one that would bring every name in this circle back into the flames, would be waiting for them the following morning. The Love and hip-hop cameras continued to silently record the unscripted aftermath of the storm the night after it happened. Emotions blazed beneath the surface of the Puerto Rico villa, even as the lights darkened. Wrapped in a blanket, Yandy sat by himself on the balcony, gazing out at the waves. She remained silent for a long time. The only sound was the distant giggles of a few co-stars who were attempting to pretend that nothing was wrong. "It's crazy how fast love turns into headlines," she murmured, almost in a whisper. Those remarks encapsulated everything that had transpired, a mixture of anguish, truth, and public condemnation for which no one was prepared. Producers sought closure, but when confidence is betrayed on camera, closure is difficult to achieve. They assembled the remaining actors for a last group scene early the following morning. Everyone appeared worn out, including Spice, who wore dark glasses, Zane, who kept his head down, the Mendeecees, who were attempting to remain composed, and Yandy, who entered the room like a woman who had found peace with the commotion all around her. There was a lot of uneasiness and curiosity in the air. When the two finally met again, everyone was curious to see what would happen. Yandy only looked at Mendeecees when she sat down. There was a lengthy pause before she whispered, "You know what hurts the most? Not the gossip, not what Zane said. It's realizing that you hesitated when I needed you to be by my side." After taking a deep breath, Mendeecees responded, "I didn't hesitate because I didn't care. I simply had no idea how to protect myself from something that never occurred." As though she had heard it all before, Yandy nodded slowly. "Perhaps," she said. "However, when you don't stand up for the truth, perception becomes reality." Spice eventually spoke up while seated off to the side. "You two have endured too much to allow this bullshit to destroy you. There will always be conversation. However, you cannot allow them to define what love is." Spice rarely played the mediator, but when she did, her tone was different, softer, almost contrite. "And maybe I was wrong for pushing it too far," she continued. "I didn't intend to exacerbate the situation." "I know you didn't," said Yandy, nodding as he glanced at her. "However, it did." With a more composed tone than previously, Mendeecees turned to face Zane. "You claim to have seen something. Perhaps you did. But the next time, act like a man and pull me away instead of letting the whole see it." For the first time, Zane had an embarrassed expression. "You're right," he muttered. "I became engrossed in the moment. I didn't belong there." The two shook hands with understanding rather than warmth. It was the type of quiet truce that is rarely depicted on reality television. Then, in one of the trip's most surprising turns, Yandy added, "I don't know what's next for us," as he glanced at the Mendeecees. "But if I'm the only one trying, I know I can't fix what's broken." For a little moment, it appeared as though they might be able to reconcile when he reached for her hand. "You're not alone," he whispered quietly. "I'm present. Even though I made mistakes that I'm not even aware of, "I'm not going away." When their eyes locked, there was a genuine human connection between them, even if the tension persisted. The rest of the cast silently observed them. Not even Carly, who was renowned for her theatrical outbursts, spoke. Everyone seemed to realize that, for once, this was about two people attempting to maintain their love in front of millions of people, not about entertainment or ratings. When the director yelled "cut," nobody moved. Breaking the hush seemed awful. You see, that's what this show is supposed to be. Not fights, not shade, but real moments like this, Spice stated at the end. And everyone agreed for once. Later that night, producers recorded a final confessional with Yandy as the cast prepared to depart Puerto Rico. "People think reality TV shows everything, but it doesn't," she added, gazing into the camera while seated beneath the gentle glow of string lights. "You don't witness our intimate moments or the times we cry in front of the camera to keep the people we care about safe. But even when you're not prepared, reality can occasionally find a way to surface. Regardless of what happens, I'm proud of the woman I've become," she said with a slight smile. "Because I'm still standing in spite of all the noise." Mendeecees recorded his own final confessional in the interim. He appeared solemn, perhaps even modest. He remarked, "I learned something out here. You have no control over what other people say, but you do have control over how you respond to them. I'm not flawless, never made that assertion. However, I will battle to restore my wife's honor. Because true love is messy, difficult, and worthwhile." The internet was still humming. Bloggers were still making predictions. And fans were still arguing whether the reunion between Mendeecees and Yandy was real or staged by the time the group took their flights home. However, it no longer mattered to those present. The audience now owned the truth, whatever it was, because the story had already taken on a life of its own. In Puerto Rico, secrets were revealed, alliances shifted, and love was tested like never before, the narrator's voice says as the screen goes black. But there's no denying that the true tale starts when the cameras stop rolling. As the emotional music rises, slow-motion videos of the actors crying, hugging, and leaving are shown. It's the ideal conclusion: emotional, unresolved, and bittersweet. The voiceover then cuts to the well-known outro tone as usual. So, what do you suppose actually transpired between Mendeecees and Yandy? Did Zane fabricate the narrative to stir things up, or was he telling the truth? We want to know what you think, even though social media is raging and fans are already split. Tell us which side you support by leaving your thoughts in the comments section below. Did we just see the demise of one of the most famous couples on the program? Or was this just another miscommunication about love and hip-hop? When the drama evolves into engagement, the tone subtly changes and leans straight into the call to action that every viewer is familiar with. The chaos never stops if you've been watching this season from the beginning. And this is only the start of what lies ahead. In the upcoming episodes, deeper secrets, new betrayals, and new alliances are all poised to blow apart. If you thought Puerto Rico was crazy, wait until you see what's coming home. Don't miss what happens as the cast returns to Atlanta. The spectator is drawn in as the narrator's voice becomes more passionate. If you were taken aback by Zane's admission, click the like button. Subscribe to keep up with all of this season's updates, surprises, and secrets. Additionally, remember to enable notifications so you don't miss the next blast. Because the drama is far from over, I assure you. The outro then ends on a suspenseful note with a final dramatic pause. And remember, in love and hip-hop, nothing stays hidden forever. Not the truth, certainly not the falsehoods, and not the secrets. Watchers are left breathless as the music fades, the screen goes black, and the outro logo appears. They are repeating every detail, every glance, and every unspoken communication between Mendeecees and Yandy. With snippets of unreleased footage, such as Spice yelling in a hallway, Scrappy storming off set, and Yandy's voice whispering, "It's not over yet." The credits roll slowly, hinting at the upcoming episode. The cycle then starts over. Another storm, another tale, another incentive for fans to keep watching, keep making assumptions, and keep delving farther into the world of hip-hop and love in Atlanta. This is your chance if you're still here and have survived this far into the mayhem. For more dramatic drama, untold secrets, and behind-the-scenes truths, feel free to hit the like button, leave a comment below, and subscribe, because the story you believe you know is only getting started.